What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. Start with some baseball scores. We got Marlins beating the Astros 5-1. 5 scoreless innings from Braxton Garrett. And Mets over the Pirates 7-2. Lindor, he had his 20th stolen base of the season. He's the first Met to have a 20-20 year, 20 homers and 20 steals since Carlos Beltran in 2008, 15 years ago. Alonso tied Keith Hernandez on 10th all-time for RBIs in Mets history. Let's pick up a win there. Braves destroyed the Yankees 11-3 as they continue just to murder the New York teams. Take 3 out of 4 from the matchup, scored on 34-3 in the first 3 games. That beat the Yankees 11-3. Fox making up 8 runs and 2 in the third, and now Luis Severino's going today. Depending on when you guys see this on YouTube, right, 3:08 Eastern time right now. The game may have already started. I'm not sure, but Yankees are in a tough spot right now. They really should have sold up a deadline. To be honest, Nicky Lopez has 8 RBIs in his first 4 games, starting with the injured Ozzie Albies at second base. He's the first Atlanta Braves player with 8 RBIs in his first 4 games of the Braves since at least 1920. They said. Griffin continue the roll. Cardinals over the Athletics 7-5. Texas Rangers shot the Angels 12-7 scoreless innings. He had just 1 hit and had 11 strikeouts. He didn't have a great year. He were over 4 when he came to them, but a 1.8 ERA in 3 starts as a Texas Ranger. Kansas City Royals beat the Seattle Mariners 7-6. Walk-off squeeze bump by Dorian Blanco in the bottom of the 9th. Rockies over the Diamondbacks 6-4. Arizona is falling apart. They have lost 10 of the last 12 and 21 of their last 28. They are just falling apart. They were 16 games over 500 at one point. They're now under 500 by a game. Orioles beat the Padres 4-1, and Rays beat the San Francisco Giants 10-2. Onto the standings. We'll do the divisional standings first, and then we'll look at the wild card. American League East, Orioles lead Tampa by 3 games. Toronto's 8.5 back. Boston, the Yankees round out that division. Yankees have lost 7 of 10, and they are now almost buried in last place. They're 2.5 games back up the Red Sox for 4th place in that division. Had a really tough year. There's no argument to me. It's the worst season in the history of the franchise. I mean, they haven't had that many years worse than 90 wins since the very beginning of time. It seems like, 90 and 72 for them is not a great year. I don't know if they're going to finish 500. This is a pretty pathetic year for the New York Yankees. American League Central, Minnesota Twins lead Cleveland by 4.5 games. They got Detroit, the White Sox, and the Royals running out that division. American League West, Texas leads Houston by 3.5 games. Seattle's 7.5 back, and the Angels and the A's run out that division. Braves, of course, are kings of the National League East, 11.5 game lead over Philly. You got Miami and the Mets and the Nationals. Mets are only a game better than the Nationals right now. National League Central, the Cubs and the Reds are 3.5 games behind Milwaukee. You got Pittsburgh and St. Louis are tied right now. National League West, Dodgers have opened up a 9-game win over San Francisco, followed by Arizona, San Diego, and Colorado. The wild card standings in the American League, the Rays are the first wild card. A pretty good lead for that. Houston remains the second wild card. They're 2 games up on Toronto for the second wild card spot. They're 3.5 games behind Tampa for the first wild card spot. Toronto now is the last wild card spot in the American League. They're 2 games, like I said, 2 games behind Houston for the second spot. Seattle is 2 games out. Boston is 3 games out, and the Yankees are 5.5 games out. You have the Angels 7 games out, continue to fade, and then you got Cleveland, Detroit, White Sox, Kansas City, and Oakland. Cleveland's only 4.5 out their division, so they could still win their division, but they've not been playing well since the trade deadline after they sold them at the trade deadline, so that's unlikely. Detroit, White Sox, Kansas City, and Oakland just all suck. In the National League wild card race, you got Philadelphia, the Phillies are the first wild card spot. They're 2 games ahead of San Francisco for the first spot. The second wild card spot is the San Francisco Giants, who are a half game ahead of Miami. Miami Marlins in the third spot. They're only a half game out of the second spot and 2.5 games out of the first wild card spot. The Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds are a game out of the playoff. Arizona is 3.5 out. And then the San Diego Padres have fallen 6.5 games out of the playoffs. They continue to struggle. They've lost 8 of their last 10. And then the Mets, Pirates, St. Louis, Washington, and Colorado round out the National League. So those are your MLB standings. There was a report that came out. So there's some more drama with the Mets. Obviously, they've had a pathetically bad year. Yeah, are the richest team in baseball. $344 million is their payroll. So something like that. And obviously, they are only game ahead of the Washington Nationals for fourth place in the National League East. Season's over. They blew up a deadline. Had a horrible season. Not going to the playoffs. They're probably going to lose at least 90 games. There's been reports that Verlander and Scherzer weren't as close as we thought they were. Not only with the Mets, but way back when, at this point, almost 10 years ago in Detroit. And apparently, a anonymous Mets player came out and almost took a shot at Verlander. They didn't put their name in there. And they referred to Verlander as a diva. Apparently, Verlander approached the Mets. He gave constructive criticism about their analytics, saying that he believes that the Mets analytics are outdated. And he made, a suggestion on how to improve them. Apparently, the Mets didn't like that. And Verlander, he made a statement on social media. He said, "I want to say that I have nothing but respect for the Mets organization. I enjoyed connecting with all my teammates this season, new and old. It truly was a wonderful group of people. That being said, beyond the success of a team is made up of more than just the players on the field. Everyone's input is valuable. I'm sorry to hear that a staff member took offense to constructive criticism on how we could improve. Wishing nothing but the best to the Mets moving forward." So from what I've heard, Verlander and Scherzer aren't that close. Everyone thinks they're buddy-buddy. They were a dominant rotation duo in Detroit, and they reunited briefly with the Mets this year. Sure, they're good friends, whatever. Not necessarily. Apparently, when they were in Detroit, they didn't really like each other much. Not that they hate each other. It was like, A-Rod, Derek Jeter with the Yankees. They didn't really like each other. How this, they're both analysts now on the same show. It's still questionable if they have any respect for each other. At least Jeter to A-Rod for sure. When I've heard, it's like, it was like, okay, one of them will go out and pitch. Next guy will be like, all right, you did that. I'm gonna go out and do even better. So they kind of clash that way. Just both being super competitive and just they were almost like they're competing against each other, trying to each pitch better than the other, than opposed to just trying to go out there and pitch their best to help the team win. And not that they don't want to win; those two want to win more than anybody, especially Max Scherzer. He's as competitive as they come, and Verlander is right up there as well. But they were almost like, when it came to their relationship, they, you wouldn't see them going out, hanging out outside of being at the ballpark together, and because they're on the same team, and they weren't going to dinners or anything like that. And my prediction is, I think they're like, all right, they didn't get along perfectly, but they kind of were able to, not that they couldn't stand each other, but they were able to coexist in Detroit. I mean, they were both two of the best pitchers in all baseball, and they were, at the time, Detroit was a really good team. And I thought, all right, they were younger. That was Scherzer signed his first year in Washington was 2015. So they haven't been on the same team in 8 years. They thought, all right, now they're older. Scherzer is now 38, going on 39. Verlander is now 40. They're older now. They're more mature. It's now opposed to being in Detroit, Michigan for the Detroit Tigers, from New York, in Queens, New York, with the New York Mets. There's very high expectations. High expectations. they thought, all right, it'll be better. And I just don't think it was as glamorous as they thought. For example, last year, the Mets had Jacob DeGrom and Max Scherzer top of the rotation. Of course, didn't really work. Both pitched great, but DeGrom missed basically the first 4 months of the season, only made 11 starts. Even Scherzer, they only made 23 or 24 starts last year. But all the time, we saw them talking, in the in the dugout. They would, compliment each other, in the press conferences, to the media. Supposedly, I heard that one of the reasons DeGrom even considered staying with the Mets was of the influence that Max Scherzer had on him. I heard the reason, last year with the Mets, he started throwing his curveball, which he almost basically never threw much those last couple of years. That the Mets, he threw a little bit more last year. Part of the reason is that was a recommendation from Max Scherzer, so they clearly got along and were pretty good friends. And with like right when Scherzer signed with the Mets, when they asked him, or is it going to be you or Jacob DeGrom opening day? He said, hey, he should start opening day. It didn't work out because DeGrom got hurt in spring training, but like at the time it was like, I got the front of him. He's been here before. I mean, he clearly had a lot of respect for Jacob DeGrom. With Verlander and Scherzer, you didn't see, a lot of them being super buddy on the dugout. I mean, once in a while, obviously the camera cuts in, they were maybe sitting together, like just watching the game, but they weren't really talking. You didn't hear a ton of compliments being, given to each other in the press conference. When Verlander signs, there was no outsider like, oh yeah, like, oh, they reunite from when they were in Detroit. They were really good in Detroit. They hopefully will be really good now with the Mets. That's just plain facts. So I don't think they were the best of friends. And so yeah, I think so. I just think Verlander and the Mets didn't see, he had an issue with their analytics. He tried to give some constructive criticism how to improve it. I think the Mets didn't see eye to eye, and they kind of clashed that way. Is what it is. I hate when like, oh, an anonymous source is this about a guy. Like, put your name in, okay? Come on, he's not my teammate with you anymore. He's not your teammate anymore. Like, come on. I do think Verlander enjoys times of Matt. Like Roman got to Houston, he said that he got. They say, oh, I had a fun time playing with the Mets. I would recommend their organization. Even now coming out, says like, I apologize. They didn't agree with my constructive criticism on the analytics, but wish them luck going forward. But I just think the Mets and Verlander clash with the analytics, and maybe that kind of rubs whoever said it the wrong way. Also, like his comment after Scherzer got traded, he was like, he said like, oh, baby said like after his, because remember if they trade David Robinson, Scherzer said, yeah, I'm just basically said I'm disappointed. I need to have a talk with the front office about their direction. And apparently, Steve Cohen couldn't commit to signing for agents next year, so he's like, all right, I think I wanted to get traded. So like, your Mets probably said, please do. You're not that good anymore. I'm sorry, especially with that contract. You're not worth $40 million anymore. Let's work out a trade. He basically said like, basically said, well, once he said the comment, I wasn't surprised. So see ya. Almost what he said. And of course, then a couple of days later, they ended up moving to Justin Verlander. He followed him out the door. He goes to Houston. Scherzer goes to Texas. But yeah, so I just think Scherzer and Verlander, don't love each other. Never really did. Verlander tried to get, he had a problem with the analytics. He said something about Mets kind of clash, and maybe someone in the Mets clubhouse didn't like that. That's what I got out of that whole thing. Only piece of NHL news I have, the Montreal trade Jeff Petrie again. They sent him to the Detroit Red Wings in exchange to get back Gustav Lindstrom, and a 4th-round pick in 2024. He played for Montreal for a while, like 7 or 8 years. Last year, traded him to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh just traded him back to Montreal in a 3-team trade. They got him Eric Carlson from San Jose. And only a week, like 2 weeks, if that, later, a week or two later, Montreal sends him out again, this time to Detroit for Gustav Lindstrom, a young defenseman. I believe he's related to Nick Lindstrom, the all-time great Detroit Red Wings defenseman, and they get an extra draft pick. Stuff I got is the NFL news. We got some free agent signings. New England Patriots signed Ezekiel Elliott to a one-year deal worth up to $6 million. Pretty good signing. He's nowhere near the player he once was. Last year, he only averaged 3.8 yards per carry, but he still did run for 876 yards, which is a lot lower than he usually. He's usually way over 1,000. Only 3.8 yards a carry, but he had 12 touchdowns. He's still a good goal line back. You know, you need a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1. Bring him in, have him truck up the middle for 2 yards, get the first down. I think he'll get a lot of goal line work. You all know that famous stat from Jerome Bettis, the Steelers, who of course is a very, very bulky back. 5 carries, 1 yard, 3 touchdowns. I think Zeke will have something like that. And to that extent, that's just a crazy stat line. But I think we'll see some stat line from Zeke: 8 carries, 22 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So Zeke Elliott has found the home. You know, he's now in New England. He'll be the number 2 back to Ramondre Stevenson there. They're definitely looking for some depth. Only other guy they already have there is Peter Strong, besides Ramondre Stevenson. And the New York Jets signed Dalvin Cook to a 1 deal with up to $8.6 million. I'm very happy about this signing. Cook last year over 1,100 yards, 1,173 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4.4 yards per carry, 39 catches, 295, and 2 scores. So you also can catch the ball a little bit. You know, and the Jets they also activated Breece Hall off the pup list, physically unable to perform less, so he's back at practice. So we'll see. I assume that means he's definitely playing week 1. You know, I don't know if he'll play in the preseason. I'd probably rather him not playing the preseason. That's just, to me, there's an opportunity for him to get hurt. Mostly because he hasn't played since, you know, middle of last year. Want to give him a series or 2, fine, but no more than that. Please don't get him injured again. But like, I don't expect Dalvin Cook to be the same guy that rushes for over 1,000 yards. He's 28 years old. He's a lot of mileage on him. What he can be is a solid back, you know, the 1A or 1B to Breece Hall. You know, now you have Dalvin Cook. You can ease Breece Hall back in. You know, you can not give Breece Hall a huge workload. You know, coming off a torn ACL at a very young age, only a 2nd year in the league. You know, if Breece Hall were to miss the first game or even the first couple of games, Dalvin Cook is completely fine being a starting back. He's still a top 12 to 15 back in the league. He can certainly be your starter. You know, the main guy for the first for the first couple of games, if need be. And then he can be like the 1B when Breece Hall comes back. But considering he's off the injury, they activate Breece Hall today, I doubt that'll even be the case. He'll probably play week 1. So, again, I don't expect him to be the guy that's rushed for 1,100 yards 4 years in a row. You know, last year, 1,173 was a little bit lower than his career numbers. You know, 4.4 yards a carry is a career low for him. You know, even the 39 catches is good, but he normally was a little more involved in the passing game. Part of it was the Vikings went to a more pass-heavy offense when they were opposed to a run-heavy offense before they brought in Kevin Stefanski to be their head coach last year. But they got a guy who, my guess, I think we'll see Breece Hall on the earlier downs, and on 3rd down, we'll probably see Dalvin Cook a little bit more than we will see Breece Hall. He'll be like the 1B to Breece Hall. And you see a lot of running backs, they fall off pretty quickly. You see a guy like Le'Veon Bell, was like way the best back in the league, and he fell off a cliff. You know, once he left the Pittsburgh Steelers. Todd Gurley, a guy who was, you know, absolute stud, and then all of a sudden, you know, his knee gave out on him. You know, even Melvin Gordon was one of the top backs in the league, and all of a sudden, he fell off pretty quickly. Why a lot of teams are going to these 2 back sets. A lot of teams, you know, despite, you know, already having her to get back, you know, they draft on the 3rd round. Seattle drafted Kenneth Walker in the 2nd round last year. He has a phenomenal rookie year. And this year they went and drafted Zach Charbonnet in the third round. The Miami Dolphins have Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. They went and draft, Devin Ashane in the third round. Dallas Cowboys already have Tony Pollard. They're ready to had him for a couple of years. They just franchise tagged him. They're ready to unleash him. Now you draft the little scat guy in Deuce Vaughn. So a lot of teams are doing this because they're realizing, if your hand if a running back is getting 250, 300 carries every year for 4 or 5 years in a row, they're going to wear them down. So, but if you have two guys, you can give them like 10 or 15 each. Then a guy like Breece Hall, when his contract comes up in a year or two, he won't be completely cooked. He won't have that as much mileage, and Dalvin Cook will help, keep his carries down. So I think Dalvin can help the Jets in a lot of ways. I don't think he'll be as much of the Jets have a pretty nice receiving core, but I think he'll catch the ball a little bit. And plus you got a guy in Michael Carter, third round pick 2 years ago, who's pretty good, not a bad depth option. He can catch the ball as well. This kid, Israel Abakan, whatever his name is, he's looked really good in preseason. The rookie from Pitt, I like him. You have him for depth. They have somebody else there as well for depth. So now, just showing. All right, yes, Aaron Rodgers is 39 years old, but guess what? He doesn't have to be, the savior like he was, and throw the ball 40 times like he did in Green Bay. They're going to run the ball for at least 2, if not 3 or 4 backs. Probably 30 times a game at least. They're going to lean on a really good defense. And Aaron Rodgers will just all he's got to do is just make the throws to Garrett Wilson, who's one of the league's best up-and-coming receivers, to his old buddy Al Lazard, who obviously has a lot of chemistry with. He got a big play for McCole Hardman. Tyler Conklin is a security blanket. So, to me, I think you can make an argument the Jets are a borderline Super Bowl contender. I don't expect them to win a Super Bowl, but at the very least, they almost guaranteed to be a 10-win playoff team. Will be very competitive in the AFC East and could be a borderline Super Bowl contender. So I was very happy with the Dalvin Cook news. We had some sad news. Alex Collins, former Seahawks and Ravens running back, he passed away at the age of 28 in a motorcycle accident. Very, very sad. The Seahawks were both released a statement saying he was a really cool guy. Robert Griffin III, who played for him briefly with the Ravens, when he was a backup quarterback there, said, he told a story. He tweeted out a story on Twitter how he invited him and his wife out one time, just how much of a good time that they had. So he was just a really good guy. It's a shame. I mean, that's why you gotta be very careful with these motorcycles. They are very dangerous. On the road, they're kind of hard to see. You always gotta give them space. So that's why you gotta be very careful. So rest in peace to Alex Collins. A couple of other running back moves. The Raiders signed Demi Williams recently. He was in the Super Bowl a few years ago, was phenomenal. Last year he only played in one game last year. I think with the Raiders, or not the Raiders, maybe the Saints or something. I forgot where he was last year. Only played in one game, was placed on reserve, then was released in December. But a couple of years ago, he had a really good year for the Chiefs, and he goes to the Raiders. Darrell Williams goes to the Saints. He only had 21 carries last year, former Chief and Saint. As for some depth. Saints looking for some running back depth with. Benjamin was one of their. Who's probably going to be their third string or backup. He's out for the year for 20 ACL. Out. Tried. They were hoping to sign Kareem Hunt, and at least they haven't done so far. Outside of Kendrick Miller, behind Williams, they're a little thin without at least the first 3 games. So did they pick up Darrell Williams for some depth? And Anthony Richardson has been named the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. He beats up Gardner Minshew in the starting quarterback competition. He will start week 1 for Indianapolis Colts. He looked in the preseason week 1. He's very, very raw. The Colts aren't going to be good this year. Let him learn. Let him make mistakes now. Give him some more pieces next year, and then go out and take a big step forward next year. So I think that is the right move. All right, still don't know exactly what time we're going to do the Fantasy Football Podcast on Sunday. Again, there will be a guest. You have to watch my show in order to find out who it is. Don't have a time yet, but I plan to get that figured out at least before Friday. Oh, actually before tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm gonna do a podcast. I'm gonna be in Jersey the Thursday until the weekend. So no show Thursday or Friday, but Sunday I'll be doing a podcast. So I'll probably tell you about the time. Well, I should have figured it out by tomorrow. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. Until next time, so long. Have a great day.